to Struggle City Podcast, where we clearly struggle all day long.
Shut up, I'm tired.
It's me, Missy, Casey, and Dave is here today. Hi, Dave.
Hi, I'm not participating in this conversation because it's a book I have not read.
Yeah, this is another episode of We Speak English. It's called A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
What?
That's it.
That's it. So, Dave, feel free to comment on anything that we have to say, I guess, because I don't want to leave you out.
I'm the sound guy today.
Okay.
That's fine.
All
Go
right.
for it.
Okay. So Casey gave me this book after he read it, and he was like, you have to read this, it was really good. So there is a quote from Stephen King on here saying that this scared the living hell out of me, and I'm pretty hard to scare. And so I went into it with, like, this book is going to be fucking amazing.
It sets a high bar.
Yeah, it does set a really high bar. And it was really good for the most part. I do have some issues with it, but Casey, would you like to explain the plot?
Yep. Oh, hang on. Oh, I'm dying.
Oh my God.
So, it's like a first-person perspective where this girl is explaining her family's fame and story being told through a reality show in which they're trying to determine whether or not her sister was actually possessed. And you do find out, maybe,
It's
later
open
in the
to
book.
interpretation.
That's
for
super
sure.
ambiguous. And that's the scariest part, is that there's no definite answer.
Yeah.
And I feel like, because the previous book I gave you,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of ending things, I feel like that kind of raised the bar for you for book recommendations from
Oh,
me.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was a great book.
So good.
And then I ended up reading A Head Full of Ghosts right after The Night Circus, which we talked about before, and this was so much better. Such a palate cleanser. It was wonderful. But yeah, I I really liked how it was from Mary's perspective.
Yeah, she's the only one that was left alive.
Well, yeah, okay, but like...
Spoilers.
Well, I meant like from being a child. She was like 8 years old, witnessing all this, going through all of this. I wish that they had talked a little bit more about the actual TV show, because...
well, in hearing about her life, you do, that is the TV show.
Yeah, but like, how do you make like a whole TV show out of just that? Like, I wanted more detail, I just wanted more, because I liked it.
I imagine it would have been like one of those bullshit Ghost Hunter shows.
Ghost Hunters is not bullshit. Or no, Ghost Adventures is not bullshit.
Which one's Ghost Adventures?
The one with the guy you don't like, Zach.
Oh, Zach Baggins? That goofy bastard?
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
It's not bullshit.
Hey there,
Go watch
demons,
it.
it's me, ya boy.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going back to the book. I'm keeping you on track.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I imagine it would be structured like that, where there are instances in the house that they're trying to investigate, while, there's producers and showrunners trying to kind of instill and instigate drama between the family members.
Yeah.
So the possession wouldn't have been the main focus on the show, because it's one of those things you can't control, but instead it would be a focus on the drama being fueled by it.
Alright, that's fair. Well, the whole idea of possession didn't even come into play until her dad was like, I'm going to be super religious now.
Oh, yeah.
Because before that, like, they had taken her to a psychiatrist, and she was on medicine, and it was like, okay, you're schizophrenic.
Right.
And she kept saying, like, the voices won't stop talking to me, so obviously you're schizophrenic.
Right, it's classic schizophrenia, but once religion comes into it, then it's just like, oh...
You're possessed by a demon.
Right, because that was the old world belief.
Right. And so they did an exorcism, and that was interesting. Like, I liked how periodically Mary, now as an adult, comes in with this blog that she writes, but no one knows it's her.
Yes.
And she's, like, critiquing the show.
I think that may have been my favorite part.
Yeah. And I didn't like it in the beginning, but I liked it the more it happened. But she would point out all of the flaws and say, like, oh, well, this could have been fake and this could have been fake and whatever. Right. But I wanted to believe it because I just like believing in that kind of stuff. I think it's really interesting and I think it's real. So I didn't particularly like that, but the way this book was written was fabulous.
He's a great writer.
Oh my God.
He's terrifically engaging, and he holds your attention.
Yeah.
And it's funny that Stephen King comes up and gives him that quote, because Stephen King's own son writes, Joe Hill. And a lot of people kind of look to him to be the heir to Stephen King, but I think it's definitely more Paul Tremblay.
Yeah.
Because Joe Hill has established himself as his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
He's established his own style, his own way of writing.
Which is hard to do when you're the son of a really famous
Which is why
author.
he doesn't go by Joe King.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Because he really wanted to set himself apart, and I really believe he did.
Yeah,
but in terms of familial terror and horror,
mm-hmm.
Paul Tremblay does a better job.
Yeah, I was legitimately scared reading this at night, and I couldn't get to sleep because the way that it's the two sisters. So Mary's the younger one, and then her older sister is Marjorie, and Marjorie is the one who is possessed / schizophrenic, and the detail that goes into these stories that she tells her sister are amazing. That was like their thing before she discovered that she was schizophrenic. I don't know. And they would get this book that Mary had, and they would write their own stories in it. And it was really cute. I liked how connected they felt as sisters there, or at least how I perceived them as. Yeah. But then her stories got to be really, really dark. And they didn't really make sense, and it was just her, repeating certain things, but it was terrifying. Right. Like, the one with the growing things, oh my god.
Oh, shit, yeah.
That was bad. I should, find that and read it.
In rereading that, I got a lot of vibes of the new Haunting of Hill House.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
Just in the...
I thought it was so scary.
In the beginning, yeah. And then it falls apart at the end. But just in the way they build up that sibling bond and the family struggles, I got a lot of that.
Yeah.
In both.
Yeah. You could definitely see that throughout the whole book.
Oh, yeah.
The main thing that I didn't like about this book was with the final episode of the TV show. Mm-hmm. They tell you that Marjorie is, she's in her room, they're trying to do the exorcism, and then Mary runs out and runs downstairs because she doesn't want to be there. Yes. And then Marjorie follows her, and something about the staircase and the landing, and Mary got down just fine, and then Marjorie was floating in midair.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah, and then it stopped.
Well, because it's a traumatic image.
But I want to know what happened after that in their lives, and that's what I didn't like. There was no ending to that. I
mean, there is an ending. It's just not to that particular.
But there should have been. I'm sorry, your daughter is floating in the air. But what happened?
But it's traumatic. She's probably not. She's either not properly remembering it. She's misremembering it, inserting something to try and understand what's happening.
Yeah.
So there's again, it's more ambiguity, and that's where real terror can be.
Yeah, that's true. And that's yeah.
Yeah, because it's not like It or Pet Sematary where there's a definite antagonist. Mm-hmm. There's a force that you know, in Head Full of Ghosts, you don't know what it is.
Right, and I did like that, but I believe that it was a possession because when they were doing the exorcism, there were just some details where it was you would have had to look this up and memorize the shit out of it. Because she was talking about old religious stuff and demon stuff, and
well, it's still a thing that you could have known.
Yeah, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she had a lot of time before the exorcism to look at all this stuff. But then you talk about her injuries. And that's something else, too. At one point, before the exorcism, she, in, this really, devilish... I pictured her, with this grin on her face and just, look at the shit that I'm doing.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Oh, my God. It was so, provocative, in a way. Ooh. Not, real, lusty or nothing. But, yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. And, she... Yeah. And she gets up, and she is wearing, a crop top or whatever, and her stomach is just torn to shreds.
Yes.
And it's what did you even use?
It's a freaky image.
Yeah.
I think the implication was that she had used her own fingers.
Yeah. Which makes it even more
what the fuck are you on?
Right.
What kind of bath salts are you doing?
Yeah. So I liked that, and then what made me really uncomfortable was the other one that she did, where she was in her parents' bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was messed up. I don't remember. Was she bleeding? Yeah.
Yes.
Was it from injury?
I think that's, again, one of those things you weren't sure. Because again, it's a crazy, traumatic episode.
Right.
Things aren't always as they seem.
Right. Well, essentially, Mary goes into her parents' bedroom and watches her sister do this. And she hears this, like, sloshing, like, wet noise.
You could just say what it is.
I'm getting there. But, like, I don't know where the dad is. I think he was downstairs, and the mom's in the bathroom, and Mary, like, runs over to the bathroom. She's like, Mom, like, Marjorie's hurt. Like, you have to come out. And she's like, 1 minute. And she never comes out.
No.
And, yeah, and Marjorie's just masturbating with a cross, right? Was it really a cross? Fuck.
It's a scene right out of The Exorcist.
Yeah, I was going to say, where am I remembering that from? But yeah. And she's, like, bleeding, and she's, like, really going at it. And so clearly she's not in pain.
Body of Christ.
Oh, gross. And then just, it makes it so much worse that, like, he writes about how, like, she's panting, and she's, like...
She gets downright animalistic.
Yeah, and, like, she throws her head back, and it's, like, that, it's very vivid in such little words. And I love that about this author.
She's good.
Yeah. But Mary just sits there and watches her. Granted, she's 8 years old and she doesn't understand what's happening, but like, oh my God.
It's just a violent image. And again, it's that question of mental health coming into play, because going back to like the whole animalistic thing, throwing her head back, that was lycanthropy in the Middle Ages. Just acting like an animal, acting completely human-like. It's just, you're an animal, you're a monster.
Right. Yeah, it was... Like, I can still picture exactly what I pictured when I read it, and it was so good. But then... Yeah,
his language is very clear and concise.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so well written.
And it's still... It tells you exactly what he's thinking, but at the same time, it just gets you to imagine it your own way.
Yeah, this is like natural talent.
Yeah.
Like, this is what a writer should sound like compared to fucking Night Circus writer. She was terrible. Just hated her. But, so, the whole thing starts off with Mary being interviewed by somebody who wants to know the real story behind everything. And I liked that. You know, that was a good setup. And then eventually, by the end of it, the interviewer is like, okay, so what happened after? Because I remember reading the articles about how your dad went crazy and killed everybody. And I was like, what the fuck? Like... Wait a minute, why am I hearing about this from the interviewer? Who, like, why is this not some dramatic, like, climactic scene? And I was really pissed off. And then... Case, would you like to say what happened?
No, go for it. You're on a roll.
Oh, all right.
You're all worked up.
Well, I am. I get that way. But, like, I feel bad because I, like, always talk so much during our podcast. But that's just...
It's nothing new.
All right. I'm giving you opportunity to talk. But anyway.
But you're all worked up, so go ahead.
I am. So what ends up happening is she doesn't answer that like right away, and they go their separate ways for a little bit, and then they meet up later at this coffee shop, and she talks to her, and she's like, okay, I've never told anybody this. The police don't know, like nobody knows, but my dad didn't go crazy and kill everybody. So what actually happened in a much better way than I'm explaining it right now is that Marjorie was okay for a minute, and everyone thought that like the demon was gone, and you know,
brief moment of lucidity.
Right, so everything was back to normal, and she found this. What was it? It was poison, but I don't remember. It was like carbon something.
It was some kind of cleaner, wasn't it?
I don't know.
You have the book in front of you.
I do.
Thanks.
I just handed it to him.
Shit.
But yeah, so she found this poison in the basement, and she told Mary, I found this...
How did I open up right to it?
Wow, that's pretty cool. What was it?
Potassium cyanide.
Ah, okay, I don't know where I got carbon from, but yeah.
But it's used to clean jewelry, essentially.
Oh, cool. Okay.
How did I open...
That was cool.
That's impressive.
Yeah, nice. Clearly you just want to read it again.
Apparently I was just possessed.
But yeah, so... she goes to Mary and she's like, Dad has this, like, he's gonna kill us. Like, what are we gonna do? And that obviously freaks Mary out because she's 8 years old. And so then Marjorie convinces her to put the poison in this spaghetti sauce because they were gonna have spaghetti that night. And she says, you know, it's not gonna kill them, it's just gonna scare them into being like, hey, we know what you're up to.
Right, it's just like, it's almost that older sister kind of playing a prank on the younger sister.
Yeah.
By giving her misinformation.
Yeah. Oh, God, my sisters did that all the time. More so Sam than Carol Ann, but that's okay.
Mine hasn't.
Not yet. Yeah, so she's like, okay, like, I'll do that. And then the dad isn't anywhere around for the moment, and then Marjorie is talking to the mom, like, distracting her.
Yes.
And Mary has a split second of, like, oh my god, should I do this? And she does it. And so the whole thing was, and we knew, like, from the beginning that Mary didn't like her spaghetti with sauce.
Right.
Because she hated sauce. And so Marjorie knew that, and knew that she wasn't going to get any of the poison. So did she do that because she wanted to save her little sister, or because she wanted her to live with this shit?
Again, it's that...
I know, but
it's
we're
that
discussing.
uncertainty.
We're discussing. Because I didn't think of that until just now.
I chalked it up to, it's a moment of lucidity. She wants the little sister to live, but she knows that the parents have fucked up. And she wants to punish the parents and kind of end her own.
Yeah. Okay, because I think that's how I take it too. Because I think she genuinely cared for her.
Or if we're going the route she definitely was possessed, this is just whatever was inside of her, using her like a puppet.
But then still not killing Mary, so then
because she wanted her to live with it.
Oh right, yeah, yeah. So that's up for interpretation, which is pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because sometimes I don't like that. Sometimes I get really pissed off with that stuff.
It's a good book to warrant discussion and a good bit of analysis.
Yeah, for sure. So, the sauce is now poisoned and everybody's eating dinner, and all of a sudden, like, the mom starts choking, and then the dad starts choking. Then
because it's cyanide.
Yeah, and then Marjorie starts choking. But I remember Marjorie almost smiling about it.
I thought she did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she did.
Just like going back to that eerie rictus grin type of thing.
Yeah. So that could be the whole she's not done being possessed thing, which could lead back to, you know, the demon wanted Mary to live with this shit.
Right.
And Mary seems very okay in her adult life, which is interesting to me. At least I thought so.
She's adjusted, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think having her criticism of the show is a coping mechanism.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And if not, again, if we're going down the possessed road, she's just a new host.
We'll get to that in a second. I also wanted to point out that when everybody died, that was very simple, but so traumatic.
It was great.
And, like, everybody, like, fell out of their chairs, and Mary just sat there for a minute.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, well, wake up. Like, when are you going to wake up? And then she goes over to her mom at one point and, like, lays with her, which was really upsetting. And, like, trying to wake her mom up, and her mom won't wake up. And I think it was, like, a day or two before anybody came to the house to find her.
Yeah, nobody had any idea.
Yeah. And so that fucking sticks with the child.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty traumatic. And of course, like, after we heard all of these details about the murders from the interviewer, being like, oh yeah, your dad did this, and then having it be Mary instead, it was like, whoa.
It's a great little twist.
Yeah. But it wasn't as big as I wanted it to be. Like, I was a little let down.
This isn't a big book. This isn't a story about big things.
Yes, it is. It's possession, you weirdo.
It's, well, yeah, it's
/
possession.
mental illness, that's also a big thing.
But it's not huge and bombastic. It's centered on the family, so it's still small and contained.
I still would have rathered it be, I don't know, like, spaced apart. Like, if I had known the dad went nuts and killed everybody in the beginning, that would have put such a different perspective on it, because I would have hated the dad the whole time, and then I probably wouldn't have...
That sort of information in the beginning wouldn't have been good. That's too much of an info dump.
I don't know. I might have liked it.
Because that's something that you would put, like, kind of midway through the book to kind of set up those expectations.
Well, midway, sure, but he put it, like, at the end.
No.
Right before we found out the truth. So I wanted to wait more on that.
Okay.
And then the very end, she, like, walks out of the coffee shop, and she makes some remark as to how, like, she feels so cold. Even though it's not cold outside. And that was, like, this whole thing that Marjorie felt when she was possessed with the demon. So it's like, oh, shit, is Meredith now possessed by this demon? And I didn't like that, because I feel like that is such a cheap ending.
I didn't think it was. I think it would have been cheap had it been just, like, out and out saying she's possessed. But just doing that little callback, I think is good. Because, again, it's those little things.
Yeah, but, like, at that point, like, the story had closed for me, and I was kind of satisfied with everything. And then it was like, well, let me go back and think on everything that I just read.
Mm-hmm.
But then to add that last little bit there, like, I don't like that. Like, it's like the ending to Inception. Like, does the top fall? I don't know.
It's just a bad movie.
It is, absolutely. But I don't like not knowing the endings to things.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't like knowing the endings to things, but, like, little bits in the story, not knowing, I can handle.
Because the book absolutely could have ended without that little stinger, but I'm glad it was there because it just kind of, it's that last gasp that kind of gets you.
Yeah.
It's that scene in Psycho where the fly lands on Norman Bates' hand, and he just stares at the cameras like, "Oh, I'll show them. I won't even hurt a fly."
I've never seen Psycho, so I can't comment on that.
But it's just that kind of last minute little thing that kind of sets you off, and you think everything's done. You think the bow is on the gift, everything's wrapped,
right?
And then, oh, she's cold. It's like, it's those little things I really like. It's the little details that I really appreciate and love.
Well, what about the whole fact that Marjorie flat out told Mary, "I'm faking it for the camera," because they were poor as shit and they were like going to lose the house or whatever. So this was Marjorie's way of saying, "I'm going to save the family."
Well, in the beginning she could have been, yeah. But then as time goes on, and then, you know, because the idea is that the more you invoke something, the more you name something, the more power you give it, the more you invite it in. Mm-hmm. So maybe she started out being normal, not being possessed, not having any sort of mental illness.
Right.
But in going forward, she either started to believe her own thing and then kind of brought it upon herself, or invited whatever the fuck this thing was.
But then I almost want to know where the demon came from, but that's like a whole other bit that shouldn't be in this book. But that's just me being picky at that point.
Yeah, that's being pedantic. It's like watching Us and being mad about not knowing where the doppelgangers came from.
I haven't watched Us yet.
You should. You'll hate it.
Okay, I wanted to like it.
The ending and all the unknowns will probably piss you off.
Yeah, I probably
But it's a good movie. I would definitely recommend it.
I found one of her stories.
Ah.
That's what I was looking for. I was looking for the growing thing stories, but this is a different one, where she's literally just like threatening her sister to not say anything and to keep her secret.
So mad.
And she what?
The cat's just sitting outside the door. She's so mad.
Oh. Spaghettis. Should I read it or?
You can do a little blurb if you want.
I wasn't gonna read like 5 pages of it, but like. So she says, "I'll keep your tongue and put it on a string, wear it like a necklace, keep it close against my chest. Let it taste my skin until it turns black and shrivels up like all dead things do. What an amazing fucking thought that is. Your never-ending tongue, shrunken and finally stilled." It's gorgeous.
Finally stilled.
It's so fucking weird. Like, I love it. Like, who thinks of that stuff? You know? Like, it was just
What a
great.
thing to say to a sibling.
Yeah, an 8-year-old at that.
I'm gonna wear your fucking tongue.
Yeah, oh god, that's one hell of a threat.
It's a good one.
Yeah, and so overall, I would give this book an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
it's a solid book, and it's one of the ones I like to recommend to people.
Yeah, so I would also recommend A Head Full of Ghosts. Yeah. So yeah, that was a lot smoother than our Night Circus talk. That's because we liked it.
Yeah, we enjoyed this.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for stopping by the city. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify,
Twitter, occasionally. Facebook.
Castbox. I still have that.
We're on all the things.
Yeah.
If you throw a rock, you'll hit us.
And give us a like and comment, and see you bitches later.
Bye.